Unfortunately, many people are clueless about how to set up boundaries and feel that setting boundaries makes them bad people. After that, we address people who resist your boundaries and learn how to measure the success of your boundaries. The reason for this is that for the boundary to work, you must be willing to tell someone who has crossed a boundary that they are in the wrong. Boundaries allow you to be your most authentic self. When you create and enforce boundaries, you draw an invisible line between you and another person. Whenever you are starting to set your own boundaries, it is important to keep in mind the 6 general areas where boundaries apply. Physical boundaries are different from sexual boundaries, which will be discussed later. Often, mental boundaries are boundaries with yourself in that they determine how you let other people affect your thoughts and beliefs. Emotional boundaries relate to your feelings and emotions. They separate your feelings and emotions from someone else's feelings and emotions. Like mental boundaries, emotional boundaries are often boundaries with yourself because they require you to know your emotions and take responsibility for them. If boundaries are not created and implemented in an appropriate way, your boundaries may be ineffective. In short, your goal for boundaries should be to better respect yourself and help other people respect you. Boundaries are meant to keep you and your relationships happy and healthy. If you view boundaries in this way, your boundaries will not be helpful to those around you. It is important to have this motivation for your boundaries because it ensures that your boundaries are healthy and efficient. Once you have a firm understanding of the motivation of boundaries, it is time to actually decide on the nuts and bolts of the boundaries. Once your boundaries are set within yourself, it is time to extend your boundaries to the people in your life. The only boundaries that should not be flexible are the non-negotiable boundaries. When setting boundaries in your marriage, it is important to have boundaries that preserve each other's individuality. Another important part of boundaries in marriage is physical boundaries. As far as physical boundaries in marriage are concerned, you can set boundaries relating to alone time, shared spaces, and shared chores. Finally, boundaries in marriage should relate to sexual boundaries. To many people, setting professional boundaries is even more difficult than setting boundaries in their personal lives. Though setting unreasonable or disrespectful boundaries may cost you your career, setting healthy and reasonable boundaries are more likely to help you fulfill your professional goals. It is important to draw the line between a healthy boundary and a controlling boundary. Though expressing these boundaries may be awkward at first, most employers and partners will not have an issue respecting your boundaries. Whenever you come up with the boundaries that you think you need, it is important to express the boundaries to your boss and coworkers. Make sure to set professional boundaries that are respectful and flexible to your other coworkers, and make sure to express the boundaries clearly and assertively. Whenever you set a boundary with yourself, you set expectations for how you treat yourself and your life. One of the best ways to set a boundary with yourself is by setting financial boundaries. Whether your boundary is a bath, skincare regimen, or journaling session, connect to these times of personal care and treat them as though they are a boundary with yourself. People also resist boundaries by attempting to guilt-trip the person setting the boundaries. You are just as important as the other person. So, your boundaries deserve respect, and you should not feel guilty for setting boundaries. Once you set boundaries and get everyone on board, you need to measure the success of your boundaries. Tracking these items will allow you to see how you feel before starting your boundary versus how you feel with the boundary implemented. For some of the more measurable boundaries, such as financial boundaries, keep a detailed record of your progress as well. If you are new to setting boundaries, you may want to consider getting a journal purely for recording your thoughts, actions, and feelings regarding the boundaries. Try to see why your old boundaries aren't working and tailor your new boundaries to make them more successful. You know, boundaries are successful and helpful for your life when everything goes great until someone breaks the boundary. The easiest boundary category to measure is your professional boundaries. If you set boundaries at work because you feel overworked and overwhelmed, you should feel like you have a healthier life-to-work ratio, and you should not feel burnout.